So I've been blessed that by the age of 22, I've built a pretty incredible income and business for myself. And there's really three books that I directly credit with helping me do so. And every single one starts with your thinking. It starts with your headspace. It starts with the truth that you accept, therefore the truth that you find, right? Confirmation bias is another word for this. I talk about that in my videos a lot. You're welcome to check out the channel. So these are just my three all-time go-to books. And now this is somebody who's made, a decent amount online. It's, I've sold multiple millions of dollars worth of stuff. And I'm planning to sell a lot more. And so, this video is just hopefully to add a lot of value to you and just give some credit to some books that have legitimately changed my life. All right, let's get into it. To start, let me just preface that, whether you are trying to grow a business or you're just trying to level up as a man in life and, you're trying to just take back some control of your health, your wealth, your relationships, whatever it is, even your faith, because, my faith journey has been plenty of ups and downs, right? Just like anybody's faith journey. But I think these books actually quite aid in those. So anyway, I believe that everything grows holistically in your life. You don't just grow your wealth. There's this idea of like the career-driven man that has nothing else going for him, or the family man that has nothing else going for him. And I just don't believe that that's how the world actually works. And maybe it's just a belief that I have. Maybe it's not actually true. I believe that all things grow with all things. And the level that you're at in your life often reflects the other levels that you're at in other areas in your life. And so these three books I would consider to be my secret weapons. And to be honest, even when somebody pays me for like high tier coaching, I'm like, have you read one of these three yet? If not, then start there. And literally we have clients that will come to us and be like, hey, I'm doing like $20,000 a month in my agency business or my coaching business, and I'd like to get to $1 million a year. I'm like, all right, well, where's your thinking at? And I'll always start with their thinking before anything else, and that's why we have such a great track record. But I promise this isn't a sales pitch for my services. I'm just trying to hype up these books because I want you to know, I take having the right information in my head very seriously. So let's get right into it and start with the first few. So this is the first book, probably one of the first books that I read back when I was just beginning my journey as an entrepreneur and as a man, really. When I was first starting, I was, 16 or 17 years old. And I tell this story a lot, but I tell it because I think it's important that people understand, who they're listening from. I don't have like a, what would you call it? A sob story. Like a lot of entrepreneurs or even like famous people are like, you got a lot of rappers that are like, oh, I came from as low as it gets. Like that wasn't me. I came from actually a pretty wealthy household, and my father did very well for himself, very candidly. And so a lot of people see that as privilege in the form of financial. I think the privilege that I got from that was in my perspective about the world. And I always saw, I always knew from an early age that my parents would always say, look, you get to control how you react and how you feel. And you control your mood and you control your thinking. And particularly my dad would drill these things into me. And this book helped solidify some of those things. We were going through a really tough time when I was about 17 years old. We lost our home to a house fire. And that alone is tough. But there's a lot more that I can't get into, honestly, legally, that I can't get into. But just know that I went from seeing my father, who was one of the strongest men in my life, to at one point my mom calling me back into her bedroom and saying, Trey, I don't know what to tell your father, just come help him. And I saw my dad shirtless, sweating, crying, about to pass out from exhaustion from the level of stress our family was going through, in all areas, relationally, financially, spiritually. We were getting attacked. And one of the things that I believe is that God provides provision to a point, but the story of Job in scripture, all good men have a target on their back. And so, I believe my time of trial is yet to come. To be honest, I've had some pretty huge ups in my early young adult life, but it's just inevitable that at some point, it's just Satan has a target for, men with a mission. But anyway, a week after that point where I saw my dad at his weakest point, I decided to start taking reading more seriously. And these are some of the books that I started with, and this is one of the ones that I loved. So this is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. This is actually the extended version, so it's a bit thicker. So if you want to get the extended version, you can. James Allen has some more works. I think in this book as well, there's also his, the bonus book From Poverty to Power. And I like his other stuff, but As a Man Thinketh just stands out as clearly his best work. And let me just read some passages from this to you. I just want you to understand just the sheer weight that this little book holds. Here's the starting quote of the book, and this is a quote that I've shared with like friends and family. Mind is the master that molds and makes, and man is mind, and evermore he takes. The tool of thought, and shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. And I love that last line, environment is but his looking glass. Like your environment around, your physical environment, your financial environment, your relational environment, your health environment, the things around you that reflect, all they are is just reflections of the inward thought. And so if you yourself can start to see the world around you, not as actually the world around you, but as a reflection of what's going on in your brain, you create this like power for yourself that most people never really step into. And it's not so much of a humanistic power, but it's more of just a self-awareness and an understanding that like you created where you are today. And it's funny, my fiance texted me this meme. It was just like, I need to find it. I don't know if I could ever find it. Hopefully you can just visualize it. She was like, babe, this is how you give advice. It's like, it was Woody from Toy Story going like this, right? And it said, I know you're going through a tough time, but just know you did this to yourself. And it's like, it's funny because this book is kind of like, it delivers that message, but like in a way that you can actually digest and feel good about, basically. So, yeah, it's just incredible. Like, let me see if I can find, there's this one quote in here about essentially like, he who conquers fear conquers failure. Because essentially the fear of failure invites failure into your life. And the idea behind that is if you're focused on any given outcome, whether it's fear or excitement, you're going to attract that outcome into your life. And so he who conquers fear conquers failure. And so some people are scared to start their own business, for example. That might be you. You know, I've gotten a lot of messages recently from a lot of people that are following the YouTube, and I'm kind of on a new wave with my YouTube, and I'm gonna like, you know, I hired a content coach and everything, and like, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna get you to 100,000 subscribers. So that's the goal, is to get this channel to 100, 250,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I'm gonna be married by the end of the year, so that'll be crazy. Some people, I get messages from people like, yeah, I've never started my own business before, I just love your outlook, I just follow you as a guy, and like, that's awesome to me. Like, you know, I literally do not care if you buy our stuff or not. Like, my whole thing is just creating a movement of guys and gals, but my heart goes out to the guys kind of on this channel that, you know, want to better themselves and do so through business. And as well, you know, my heart goes out to individual experts and people with a message and people that want to put that message out there, because that's what we do, right? So we've sold like, what, over 15 million worth of like coaching services for our clients, just showing them our methods of like growing your audience online and like launching your programs and everything like that. So it's a lot of fun what we do. But anyway, this is one of the first books that I read. Tangibly, the difference in my, like, this is one of those, you know, some people are averted to self-help books. They don't get self-help books. They don't understand, right? And I get it. Like, there's a lot of like cheesy crap on the surface of the self-help industry. I'll be very honest. Like, I've read, like, there's some really stupid stuff, and this isn't motivational. Like, here's the thing, if you're waiting on motivation to do the work, then you probably shouldn't be trying to do the work at all. Like, this isn't motivational. It's fundamentally a worldview change. And so there's that book. As a Man Thinketh kind of awakens you to the idea that where you are in life is often just a reflection of, you know, the thinking patterns that you have, you know, whether you adopt, you know, godly, pure, and excited thoughts of the future, or you adopt, you know, lowly, frightened, anxious, or even like hateful or deceitful thoughts, you know, you will attract that into your life. And so, you know, part of why I've grown the business I've grown today, and I've got the network I've got today, you know, I could literally pick up my phone anytime and call a buddy that I know has like 5 million liquid in the bank and be like, yo, what do you think of this investing idea, or this business move I want to make, or whatever. The reason I have these friends and these assets in this business is because I fundamentally changed my thinking first, but that's a whole other thing. Next book, Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And if you've been following my brand and my content at all, you know that this is like one of my second favorite books, like other than like the Bible itself. I recommend it to everybody. And the reason why is because it's like, I just feel like this stuff should be taught in schools. I legitimately am like, I do not know why people don't learn this stuff in school. Granted, I was homeschooled, and I'm gonna be homeschooling my kids, and so even if they taught it in schools, like they would learn it from me. But that's a whole other video, and I'm actually doing a video with my mom soon about being homeschooled, which I think is gonna be really neat for a lot of people. This book essentially is all about, it's basically this law, just like the law of gravity, where, if I drop this book, it's gonna fall. In the same way, there's a law in your own head that you will only become in life, and you will only get the results in life that you feel align with the person that you perceive yourself to be. And that might sound a little woo-woo, and that might sound a little, again, humanistic. And none of this is intentionally designed to be humanistic. And I think if you go too far the route of some of this stuff, it will become kind of the powers within you that will end up being the message. And I believe that in many ways that is the case, but I don't believe that power comes from you, right? I believe we have it in us if we get out of our own way, but I don't think we are the source of that power. I think it's more divine in nature, but some theologians would even disagree with that concept. Anyway, Psycho-Cybernetics is essentially, the subtitle is the original text of the classic guide to a new life. And really, I read this book when I had built my business to probably like $5,000 or $6,000 a month. I was selling like various coaching in different niches and playing around with different industries. I was doing like marketing consulting. I was doing like funnel coaching, like marketing funnel coaching. I was even doing like a little bit of was helping somebody write a book, and I was just doing a bunch of random stuff that I felt like I could help people do, which is kind of what we teach today. We help people just like pick an itch and go. And that's what I was doing. And this book probably single-handedly was like one of the reasons I built like a 7-figure business, to be honest, like past the $1 million a year mark. And I would large in part say because, when I was doing $5,000 or $6,000 a month, but you don't understand, growing up in a household where you have a successful father figure, especially as a man, I forget what the rule is. Maybe you could leave a comment if you know what I'm talking about, but it's just a Japanese concept of like, when you feel so detached from the success that you're seeing, it almost drives you further down and you feel less capable. And I definitely felt like that was happening to me, where like I would see the success that my father was having, and I was like, man, like, I don't think I could, I was like, can I ever do that? Maybe I can't. Like, I would get in my own head and get stuck, right? And people don't talk about this. Like, they assume that if you grew up in a home where there's like there's just like money already, that like somehow, like, I don't know. I don't know. I can get into that. I start to sound defensive really quick when I do that to a lot of people, and so it feels kind of tasteless and tone deaf. But, I digress. This book really helped me because it helped me realize, like, I am choosing to feel unworthy of the success that I desire. Because on some level, I'm comfortable with that state. So even though you might feel like you desire more, on some level, you're more comfortable where you are than, trying to get to where you want to get. And not only that, but, your self-image doesn't align with the goals that you say you have. And this is where, like, affirmations, can either work or not work. It's really like the affirmation. If you're gonna look in the mirror and give yourself affirmations, or like, do the law of attraction stuff, I believe the law of attraction stuff is inherently like a self-image thing. I don't believe it's overly spiritual. I don't know if I believe in the whole vibration thing. Maybe I do, but there's a part of me that's very careful about overly spiritualizing things and starting to worship false idols, to be honest. And I think vibrations and this whole manifestation thing can be a false idol. I do believe that there is an unseen realm, right? I do 100% believe there's an unseen realm, and I do believe that our thoughts are perceived by that unseen realm. I believe that we can pray with our thoughts. I believe that we can send a message to our Creator with our thoughts. There's scripture about that. But anyway, that's a whole other video. I feel like there's like 8 whole other videos I gotta make now. But this book is basically how to go through the tedious process of rethinking your own concept of yourself, rethinking who you think you are from a fundamental vantage point, and how to, really change the results you get in your life based on, who you think you are. And really, for some people, they're like, okay, so how does your self-image really impact what you do? Well, what you gotta understand is every day you make like 2,000 to 3,000 micro decisions. And one of the primary guiding mechanisms in how you make those decisions is your perception of yourself and who you think you are. And so if you think that you are a 40 or 50,000 a year income earner who's like, 40 pounds overweight, and you kind of just accept that state, then you will continue to act out life as such. And the book even talks about how there's like a split test group of 2 groups of men who, like, one group of men practiced swinging a golf club like physically at the range. The other group of men practiced swinging the golf club in their head and actually just visualized swinging the golf club and hitting the shot in their own head. They would quiet their eyes, they'd probably get into a slight meditative state, and they would just envision the ball going exactly where they want the ball to go. And of the two groups, the first group, actually physically practicing, and the second group just visualizing it, the second group actually outperformed the first group in a massive way, with no previous golf experience in either of the groups, by the way. So it's a really interesting, or I think there's like a certain baseline of previous golf experience. So at least there was the muscle memory of some sort of what it felt like to make the swing, I think was the thing. But the whole idea is what you can perceive in your own head, you can often create around you, so long as there's not a self-image mismatch to what you see in your head, what you believe can be there, and who you think you are. Now, that said, you still have to do the work, right? Like, just because they could hit the golf ball doesn't mean that they would have that skill for forever. They gotta continue to practice, they have to continue to learn, and they're still not as good as like a pro, but they were better than the other group that just practiced physically, which is kind of a neat thing. Yeah, really neat book. And some of the core ideas in here that really helped me was like, why even have a vision board? I used to think a vision board was a little cheesy and silly, and it was funny, like this is even one of the things that this is one of the areas where I disagree with even my dad, right? And so he doesn't have a vision board, he's never had a vision board. I'm huge on vision boards, right? I'm huge on like putting a visual reminder, because I believe that we need reminders of who we're deciding to be when we're in a state of change. When we are trying to change ourselves and we're trying to get to a new level, you need that reminder around you in your environment physically of who you are now. And like, for example, like this is a luxury watch. This is like a Rolex Daytona. It's a $40,000. Well, I could sell it for $40,000. It's not actually a $40,000 watch, but I could sell it for $40,000, which basically means like the aftermarket price is $40,000. It actually sells for like $12,500 out if you were to get it from a dealer, which I didn't. I got it used for like $32,000. But I could sell it for anyway. The whole point is, yeah, it's like a nice watch. And the reason I wear this thing is because it's a reminder of, the person that I want to be. And it's funny, I got this comment recently. I posted a selfie of me and my fiance at a coffee shop, and I had the watch on my wrist. And somebody was like, oh, weird. That's a weird flex for a Christian. And that is a whole other video I gotta make now. It's like, having faith in making money and how to do it well and how to do both well, and having peace in your heart while you do it. Like, that's a whole other video. So anyway, Psycho-Cybernetics is basically how to reframe your view of yourself and how to rethink who you think you are. Because your results in life, he talks about in the book, like, there's this concept of like you are hypnotized to think a certain way about yourself and about your environment. Whether you believe it or not, like, you have fallen into a state of hypnosis, a state of autopilot. And if you can break that autopilot for a season, like 6 months to a year, and start consciously making decisions as if you were the person you want to be, you'll find that like there's nothing really stopping you from being that person. And it's actually, for me, it was like kind of a spiritual experience of being like, whoa, there is no me. There are some base fundamentals that will always stay there. There's like some traumas in your past that you'll never be able to really fully let go of, right? There's like, or at least it'll take you time to heal if you are to let go of them. There's like the color of your skin, your height, stuff like that. There's like some biological things, and there's like some personality typing tools where like you never get rid of that type. But as a general rule, like forgetting the 10 or 20% core that makes you up, the 90 or 80% rest of you is completely up to your design. And in my view, I find a lot of freedom in that. Some people feel very attacked by that. Some people are afraid that means that there's no true them. But in my view, getting to make yourself is actually more powerful and a cooler idea. Next book, and this is actually a new copy that I picked up. This isn't my actual original copy. This is my final book, and I'm actually going through it recently, which is a part of why it's maybe a recommendation. But I do remember reading this and it being quite important for me. So this is called The Richest Man in Babylon. And this is just like timeless principles for money. I referenced it in one of my recent videos called like the 3 laws of money, like follow these and you will become rich. And, very flashy title. But in that video, I basically shared like, the 3 laws of attracting money into your life and actually becoming, reasonably wealthy, if not properly wealthy. Yeah, and in that video, I referenced this book highly because it really does have some classic, timeless ideas that allow you to, increase your odds significantly of building the wealth that you desire to build. Like, for example, one of the laws is just like the basic law of reputation. Like, reputation is something you need to take care of more than you take care of anything else. You know, if people aren't happy they spent money with you, then like you're doing something wrong. And it's challenging in the internet age, you know, with my work being so relational and my work being so coaching driven, it's honestly a challenge for me to be always 100% of the time an investment that people are like completely happy they made. And it's funny, like people will be like, oh, you're selling something, Trey, like isn't it like a bad move for you as a marketer to admit that some of your clients aren't happy? But no, here's the thing, like this is the challenge of the internet age, is bridging the gap of your relationships and being able to give people what they want despite them having to, like, for example, when somebody buys our stuff, like they have to integrate their communication with us into a whole new user interface that they're not used to, and they have to learn how to use, you know, Zoom or whatever, and then there's like a schedule to our calls, and there's all these things, and so, but if I just sat down with somebody for like an hour and like here on my couch, like I could help every single one of them, and so there's just like a communication barrier. So that was, but it was a challenge for me to read that, because it's like, man, like I need to make sure that every single person that buys our stuff is like blown away. Another idea is keep no less than 10% of what you make. So really simple idea, but you'd be surprised. The expenses that you take on will always grow to fit the amount of money you bring in, unless you decide how much you're gonna put away. And this kind of goes a little bit against, you know, some people's thinking, in that they just think that they can just log into their bank or check what they've got, and just based on kind of where it's at, you know, feel like they need to make more, or feel behind, or feel like they're doing great and feel ahead. And so you might have like that safe number. I remember at one point in my journey, that safe number was like $10,000, right? And I remember like when I had like $13,000, I'd be like, I'm doing great. And then I remember when I had like $6,000 or $7,000, I'd be like, I gotta hustle and make another sale or two, or whatever. And so what's interesting is this book literally calls out that way of thinking and says, you know, you should be like putting a specific amount of money every single month away in your personal account, in a profit account. And it's actually, it reminds me of the book Profit First. It's almost like the richest man in Babylon came up with the idea of profit first before the book Profit First even wrote it, if for those of you who are familiar with Profit First. But it's the idea that like if you don't put away your money, then inevitably your spending will catch up to the amount of money you have. It's inevitable. And it's just, it's human nature. Because, and it's not like any one big expense. What it is it's death by 1,000 cuts. And each little cut just cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts away until eventually you're left with nothing. And, you know, I mean, honestly, this was my experience. Like with my first like $500,000, I kept very little of it, because I kept, now granted, I reinvested it back into the business. However, if I had been putting away, let's say 50% of it, and I only had $250,000 to reinvest back in the business versus all of the 500, you know, not including tax, I would have been able to make just as much money today. There's no major investment that I made at that time. So I see that first 250 as like a loss. And even like my first million, I was still like getting used to the habit of putting it away. And even just, you know, now today, like I'm just now putting away a set amount of profits. And it's actually an interesting like thing. Like, you know, I have a, you know, I do well. Let me start there, but I could do better. And that thought always humbles me. It's weird, because sometimes I'll say that and people be like, they look up to where I'm at in my business so much, and then they hear that like, oh, I need to be putting away more profit, and they feel like challenged by that, or they're not challenged, but they feel surprised by that, almost as if like I should already have this figured out. But like, newsflash, I'm freaking human and I make mistakes, right? And one of them has been not following one of the rules in this book. But when I first read this book, I was like 19, I think like 3 years ago. And some of the golden laws that it talks about have been so helpful to me today, like the law of reputation, the law of put just, you know, at least 10% away. And there's plenty more, like the law of like, you know, who you are around, and like, you know, who do you spend your time with. Just all these basic laws that help you rethink, okay, if I'm not earning as much as I want to make, how do I actually earn the amount that I want to make, right? So anyway, powerful book, highly recommend it. Give it a read, and let me know what you think of the three, if you actually pick them up and read them, because it's been very impactful for me. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to leave a like Comment down below any of your thoughts. If you do read these books, let me know what you think of the books. I will leave Amazon links in the description, and they are not affiliate links. They're just links to the actual book, because I'm not that kind of a YouTuber. Like, I just, you know, I make money elsewhere. I don't need to sell you like on buying books. If anything, I need to sell you on buying our coaching programs. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.